Okay, so something that I want you guys to notice right away is that they're doing the exact same thing that they were doing game one from the last video. They're sitting up on height in earlier zones, right? This is not anywhere close to endgame right now. I think it's something like second or third zone, and they're just elevated, just like this. And they're also splitting up. They're controlling two of the main buildings in Bony Burbs, just so they can get a ton of vision and a ton of info around them. And this will eventually snowball into them taking height or potentially taking height in half and half zone, okay? And you'll see this. It really matters that you stay elevated and you're not somewhere ultimate low in earlier zones, just so you have a ton of info. And so they obviously prioritize just claiming this area. They land Bony Birds, by the way, so zone happened to pull on them and they just sit here and wait, right? And that's going to be key later on. Maybe zone pulls on you, right? Why don't you just wait, check, and then move if you need to, right? There's no need to give up this position and then go center second, which isn't that big of a deal to force something. To sit up here. And so a third zone happens to pull on them. This is great because they save mats. They're probably all max mats at this point, just because of the fact that they can refarm below them, right? If we check, Death is max mats and Leo is pretty much max mats and Spike is almost max mats. So their mats are very healthy. They're in a really good position and they're actually center third, which should pretty much guarantee that they're going to pull fourth zone. This is going to be really good for them. So that's good. That's the key. If they had made the mistake of going into center second, which is some common thing that a lot of people do, just to give a bigger probability of them pulling next zone, they would have not had this position in third circle. It's better to wait in this case because they have such a good position, and then maybe later if zone pulls far to make a play. So right here, zone does pull far. Spike builds out because they're not quite in zone here, and then they build out to this point. Death then rotates because he needs to regroup with the team. He burns a little bit of mats, but that's okay because he can just refarm down here. We're gonna see how they sort of set up in fourth zone, and the reason they set up in height in fourth zone is really important, okay? So you always want to do this if you have the opportunity and a low cost opportunity to do this. It's a really good thing to do, just because if you pull half, you can pretty much hold height for the rest of the game. Unfortunately for them, half doesn't pull on this height, okay? So half pulls somewhere over here. You'll see what they do to rotate, and they just use a pad. They use a pad to just get into next half zone. But if in the case that half pulled exactly where they're sitting, they are set. It's really good that they went for this play, because if half pulls on them, then they're chilling. Also, notice how the pad faces away. You can get a ton of cover if you pad this way towards Edge of Storm and then come out, rather than padding straight up towards here, because then everyone can see you, right? So that pad angle is actually really nice. Right, so if we follow them, they land in a deep half zone. They don't stay on edge, right? They land deep. All they have to really worry about is just make sure that these guys don't triple spray them and get them killed. So they use this tree as cover for that reason, and they have a team nearby. So what they should be looking for now, and it just happens to be exactly what they do, is the fact that they're gonna need an impact, right? Because they wasted so many mats up top. Spike is really low in mats. Death is somewhat decent, and Leo is somewhat decent, but they would love to be full mats on each player, right? They would love to have that, because in their hype playstyle, they need that. They need that sort of mat count to justify their hype plays, right? And if getting an impact and half can happen, they should go for it. They attempt it here. They attempt the pre-edit play here, and it doesn't seem to have worked, right? It's very obvious that they didn't get a really good beam on these guys, so they just give it up. They don't full commit. These guys also went left. It's harder to pre-edit play down like angles. Like if you have to go left or right, it's so much better if you just have to go in a straight line. So that's what they try to do. You see how they're actively looking for impacts, right? They're not just sitting there waiting for next zone, because their current mat count just sucks. It's not that good, especially for a team that loves playing height, right? They need many more mats to make that happen. So right now they're constantly looking for opportunities. They see another team, they hear AR, right? Obviously they can't see these names through the wall, but they hear AR in this direction, right? And so they do the exact same play. So you'll notice Leo got low, but everyone else is healthy. So all that needs to happen is Death and Spike need to keep pushing, and Leo just full disengage. Because Leo did his part. He did a ton of damage, and he needs to just sit back and heal. Never get knocked, right? If you get knocked, you might get, server sprayed by someone else. So really good that Spike and Death are going in, and Leo's playing in the back. Yep, they end up getting 2 kills out of the 3. Their mat count is very, very healthy. It's extremely, extremely good, right? It's max mats on each player compared to what it used to be. Right, so now first moving, like I always say, first moving is one of the best timings to just use all your pads, right? Don't try to greed your pads. There's absolutely no reason to do that. Use your pads and save your mats. Your mats are way more valuable in later moving zones, right? So this is what they do. Spike launch pads and then finds a checkpoint place where you just sit and wait for next zone to like expose itself where you can pad again, because obviously Death has 2 more pads. Like, this is great because that's what this impact gave them. It just gave them a ton of mats and ton of pads, so they're gonna use their pads in a smart way and try to save mats. And if you double pad first moving, you're gonna have a great opportunity to take height later, maybe second, third moving. Okay, because you'll notice like Height's just full tarping right now. They're actually burning a lot more mats than they really need to, because they should just single floor here and connect to here. That's just a way better opportunity, because it's going uphill anyways. You don't need to burn this many mats. They're staying way higher than they really need to, in my personal opinion. They should just connect on the second layer or this layer right here and just single floor over and over. They just burn a lot of mats, and you'll see how this ends up biting them in the back later on. Notice how they don't risk stealing pads. If you have a pad, it's such a bait to try to steal over and over, and obviously they might not have been aware of this pad, but just like, you don't know what's going on. Like, there might be a kid right here that could crack one of your teammates. It's just safer to use your own if you have a ton and not try to greed pads. Greeding pads is one of the ways that like people get killed. Look how many mats they have, bro. They have so many mats because of the fact that they double padded first moving. Okay, that's gonna be key as to why they continuously win height and they have the ability to take height, because they use pads. Pads are a great way to save mats, right? Without having to go for the risk of an impact. Okay, so now they're in moving zone. Spikes is going to group on Death and Leo, because it's so much easier for Spike to go down and group up with Death and Leo, rather than Death and Leo have to ramp up in this congested endgame and get to Spike. So Spike is going to drop to them. Very good. Next moving is about to pull. Notice how no one's doing anything, right? They know their plan. They're going to go for height later on, second, third moving. They don't need to do anything right now. They just need to chill, and everyone on the same page. So no one's editing anything. No one's just waiting, because they don't need it. They don't need it. Any kill that they get is not going to be a meaningful impact, because they can't really hold all the mats, right? You might as well just chill. Next zone pulls. They immediately goes. Now everyone's on the same page. Look how close they are together. This is key. No one's in back tarp sitting, just ARing. So that way you guaranteed have 3 alive. This is such good trio fundamentals from this team that shows why they consistently win games and why they consistently take height. Okay, this is the spacing that you need between all of your teammates. This is what's going to get you the biggest success rate of having all 3 members alive. So Death is in the air, Spike is in the air, Leo's going a little bit late. Now watch this. They're watching this. They see a medkitter. Okay, they see one of these guys medkitting. That means his awareness is down. He's not really paying attention. I mean, also you can sort of see which direction he's looking in. This guy's looking at it by height, but you just know that they're kind of bad on mats. This guy's on wood, and they're single flooring, and this turns into wood right here. So that's a really good indication of the fact that they're running out of mats, right? This guy's medkitting. He is not ready at all. You see this? So this is really good. This guy doesn't have his gun out. Really good opportunity to land on height, but I really want you guys to pay attention to Leo. Look what Leo does. So Death and Spike land on the medkitter. Leo completely lands on the unaware target at the opposite side of height. And he's able to get a completely game-winning free shot here. And able to... This part of the replay lagged, but it's very clear what happens here, right? Legedian dies. Let's draw a graph here. I think this graph is going to be really informative. Let's say this is the graph, okay? Down here is time, and then down here is mat count as a trio. What ends up happening is for the average mat count, the rest of the lobby, the average, okay? This is what I'm sort of referring to. It'll be something like this, right? This is 50-50 zone. This is first moving, end of second moving, and most trios will end, like, without an impact, they'll run out of the mats in third moving, depending, right? This is just an average. Leo's and Leo, Death's, and Spike's mats look something like this. Right? First of all, they were right here, right? At the beginning. Like, they were not that good on mats in half-half. Like, they're not that great, right? And then they got that impact. So look what happens to their mats, right? But also, on top of this, right? It shouldn't look like this, right? Because they used pad. They used a pad. And then they used the pad again, right? To end up in the first moving without using that many mats. So this is what their mats look like. And then there's tarping. And then somewhere in second moving, close to the end of second moving, they go for height. Because look, the average mat count sucks. Everyone on height's just constantly using mats, and height rarely gets impacts unless you proactively drop for it. And Leo's team just knows that they have really good mats for that stage of the game. Right? For second moving, their mats are amazing. That's a really good justification for you to take height, okay? In general, it's an estimation that you have more mats than the average mat count of your entire lobby. And obviously, this average mat count goes down the higher level play that you go into. For example, if you play East Open, the mat count for the average lobby will look like something like up here, right? Just because people have max mats because it's zone rules. FNCS Grand Finals, it might look something like this. because people have surge that they have to deal with, way more mats that they have to use to, because there's so many more people in the lobby. There's so many factors that affect this, right? And so because they're playing semifinals, they know the mat count somewhere around here, and they just know that their mat count's really good because of the fact that they got an impact in 50-50 zone, and they use 2 launch pads to traverse this section of the game. Okay, they completely skipped the zone by using 2 launch pads, so that's really good. And then the 3rd launch pad that they had, they used to get height. A lot of people misplay launch pad, they don't use them correctly. Leo, Death's, and Spike's launchpad usage was really, really good, and I commend them for that. The biggest thing being that they used both their launchpads in the first moving, because first moving is the longest. First moving is the longest moving zone. Obviously, this might be a little bit exaggerated, but this holds true. This is the longest distance that you travel. So if you tarp in first moving, you are going to lose a lot of mats. You would rather tarp here, and you'd rather tarp here. Okay, this is a perfect opportunity to use your launchpads during this point in time. Okay, here are the reasons why they take height at this particular point in time. Number 1, they impacted in 50-50 zone. They have way more mats than the average mat count of a trio in this particular lobby and this point in the game. During second moving, they know they have way more mats than pretty much most of the teams in this lobby, right? Also, they use launch pads twice in first moving. That saves even more mats to build on that first reason. Okay, second point, this kid is medkitting. This guy is completely medkitting. Also, he's unaware. He's not actually looking towards them. He doesn't have crosshair placement. He doesn't have his shotgun out. He's super late. You see this? This guy's the only one aware on the trio that's happening. This guy's finally coming back up and is about to look back and spray at them. But he's late. Like, he's at the front, so he can't really do much yet. Yeah, the third reason is the fact that Legedian's going to be really far ahead while he's tarping, okay? And then Leo is going to really make use of that. He's going to land behind him and completely kill him. This is a really good opportunity for Death, Leo, and Spike to really take this height. And you'll notice how committed they are. They do it together and they just commit. No one's, like, backing out. No one's trying to make a second call. Everyone's committing. Even if Spike dies, they in their eyes, it's worth it. It's worth it. Everyone commit. Leo does a really smart play, comes up behind Legedian and kills him completely. There's synchronized landings as well as the 4th reason. Spike and Death have a really good timing to land together, and Leo lands with a little bit of a delay and lands behind Legedian. Okay, so that's gonna be really key in terms of why they were able to take height. Leo sort of like takes that role as like a lurker in CS:GO or Valorant, where they sort of stay away from the team and come out unexpected, and they get a lot of value from doing that. Okay, so you'll notice this is the main attention. Spike and Death are coming from the south side. And then Leo lands a little bit late, lurks, and comes out from the north side. I know these are not actually north and south, but like everyone's fully focused on Death and Spike, who are the first landers. And then Leo takes advantage of that and lands behind the team. You'll see them doing that pinch often. Even in the next game that we review, you'll see them doing that pinch. And it's really, really useful, okay? Notice how Death still commits to height even after Spike dies. It's not a deterrent for him. He will still go for it because he's aware of the fact that his mat count is really healthy for this point in the game. He could still make that play, right? He smartly prioritizes height instead of going after those kills. You'll notice Slays and Cody are still alive. They only killed 1. But the most important thing that'll net them the most amount of points is taking height. And so Death, instead of 50-50ing and fighting and box fighting and risking his life, he instead uses his mat count to go for height. That is key. A lot of people will have a refresh or like some sort of impact early on in the game, maybe like 50-50 or first moving, and then don't take full advantage of it because they don't really understand the fact that they're ahead in mats as compared to the average mat count in the rest of the lobby. And so if you're ahead of mats, you have a lot of leverage to take height. There's not much else to say here, guys. Like, this is really easy if you know how to do it, right? The hard part is getting that impact so you're healthy on mats in half-F zone, and the hard part is really making sure that you do the height take correctly. After you secure height, it's really easy from there.